Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be covering 10 reasons to review your physical security. As a reminder, all calls will be in listen-only mode, but we'll have a designated Q&A session towards the end of today's presentation. We encourage you to submit a question at any time by typing the question in the questions section of your GoToWebinar console. We recommend that you expand the viewing window to full screen mode by using the Zoom dropdown in the upper portion of your screen. This session will be recorded and made available to participants after the call by email. Now, I'd like to introduce Darren Audie. Go ahead, Darren.
Thank you, Carrie. So, hi, my name's Darren Audie, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at C&L. And I lead marketing and product within C&L, which is an Everbridge company. And I'm joined today by Daniel Bloodworth, who's the VP of Product. And Daniel has been working in physical security for over 10 years now, and unusually in both commercial and technical roles. So in terms of today's agenda, welcome to the webinar first, I should say. Leading organizations have had to change the way they work due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the agenda that we've put together today has really been based around the learnings that we've been having, particularly this year. Digital transformation and automation are accelerating, and many of our customers have changed the way they manage both safety and security. In this webinar, we'll focus on how our customers from government and federal agencies through to corporates have highlighted the 10 key reasons why they believe we should be reviewing physical security. It's an imperative to protect people and safeguard campuses and buildings, and will contextualize physical security within critical event management, as we know that people on this call are customers of our CEM suite. We'll highlight how to think about the business case and improve risk management and compliance, and we'll touch on a number of technical aspects of physical security, all the way through to executive and operational reporting, innovation and digital transformation, and as I've said, physical security within the context of the global pandemic. We'll then dig further into Everbridge's Control Center, our physical security solution. Finally, we'll start a Q&A, so please do submit questions, as Carrie has said, as we will go through them and answer them before we finish. So the 10 reasons to review physical security. It's probably better to start with what the analysts are saying, and analysts have been reporting on physical security over the past few years. The most recent report is from Forrester in Q2 of 2020, so a very recent report, and it's their Digital Physical Security and Employee Safety report. In this, they highlighted that physical security information management is a high-value business product and are encouraging organizations to invest, as Forrester believe that widespread adoption should be encouraged based on the business case. So we will touch on that more, but I think it's really interesting to see what the analysts are saying in this space. Now, I did mention that I will contextualize physical security within critical event management by sharing Everbridge's outside-in strategy. But first, let me talk about what we mean by a critical event. And I'm sure, as we all know too well, there are bad things happening around us every day, not least the COVID-19 pandemic, which has brought safety and security to the forefront of many a boardroom. Critical events can range from life safety threats like active shooter, terrorist attacks, and civil unrest, all the way through to business disruptions like IT outages, supply chain disruptions, and large-scale weather events that can threaten both safety and operations. And as the news tells us all too frequently, these bad things seem to be on the rise. But do we necessarily care about every single one of these events? Are these critical for your organization? So, as I've mentioned, there are very many different types of critical events which can negatively impact your people, your physical assets, your business operations, and your brand. And these occur all the time. What makes a bad thing a critical event for your organization? Well, it's when one of these bad things directly or indirectly impacts something you care about. It's the intersection of that we call a critical event. And it turns out that just by identifying critical events that matter to us is often really hard. And it's where most organizations struggle with critical event management. But there are also other struggles. And the key thing is, in order to respond effectively to these critical events, an organization needs four capabilities: know early about the potential threats, quickly know the situation, which includes understanding who and what is impacted, then know what to do and be able to take that action with speed and precision. And they need to know how it went and what to do next if a threat still exists, or to understand what worked and what didn't, so that next time they can do better. So the historical Everbridge suite has focused on events that have happened from a pan-regional impact, like a pandemic, all the way through to country, state, city, even down to a block or campus level. With CNL, we've now introduced Control Center to critical event management. And this complements our approach by starting to get detailed information about critical events that are happening inside the four walls or perimeter of a campus, so within your buildings and campuses. This means situational awareness and control for dealing with things like insider threats, active assailants, intruders, fire alarms, building management alarms, lots of different types of sensors that have an immediate impact within your organization. Not only does Control Center let us aggregate and prioritize the internal alarms, but the integration capability also lets us control many of those systems to do things like move cameras, lock doors, activate PA systems, turn on fans, cooling, etc. So it's really the operational control element within your campus and buildings that Control Center brings. So really what's important when anybody is looking at any new type of technology is what's the business case? And are we able to articulate the value of investing in security automation? And we know that enabling revenues and reducing lifetime security costs are really important, particularly in the pandemic scenario. Now, one of the difficulties that our customers often find is that few CEOs have a background in risk management or security, and therefore may feel uncomfortable prioritizing the required level of investment to stay ahead of emerging threats and comprehensively manage everyday organizational risks. So setting out a business case that shapes the CEO's view of safety and security as a commercial investment, not a technology or a facility spend, is really important. And the pandemic has created a timely opportunity for accelerating security transformation. Doing a wholesale technology refresh is unlikely to receive sign-off. Instead, measure the organizational risks and combine the intelligence with a fully costed plan and roadmap. Many security executives really need to build increasingly diverse strategies to manage existing and emerging threats. And it should be uniquely defined to the scenario that you're dealing with. What we've found, certainly when talking to a lot of our customers, is that the more that this can be aligned to revenue-driving business initiatives, the easier it is to highlight value. So you're really investing in automation to reduce risks and costs, and proving value to stakeholders is a prerequisite. Invest wisely today in the right technologies to increase automation, to reduce people and process costs. And the larger the organization, the more important automation becomes for increasing consistency and reducing costs. We understand that in many cases, operations have grown considerably over time, introducing new systems to address specific pain points and create individual value to the organization. In addition to using the numbers in the business case, it's important to have a security narrative that helps senior executives to understand the value of the security investment. As I've mentioned, it's unlikely that you'll be able to build your technology architecture from the ground up due to cost. Strategically and conceptually, architecting the security stack to evolve in a managed way makes it much easier to resource, deploy, and run. And if you want more information about those elements, then please do contact us and we can talk in much more detail around that. Moving on to the third reason around risk management and compliance. Really what we're seeing is threats are increasing and risks are becoming more diverse, and staying ahead of these is paramount given what's going on. Emerging threats, as you can see, could be economic all the way through to technology. And it's really important not to oversimplify the threat narrative, as security risks are progressing faster than organizations can understand or adapt. So the strong leadership skills are really required to drive a culture of advocating security within the organization. In an uncertain globalized world with a growing number of risks, I'm sure many colleagues will be inspired by a security executive that emphasizes the importance of proactively safeguarding employees and the environment in which they live and work. Managing security awareness and advocacy across an organization can be difficult, as people are often resistant to change. But the purpose of a safety and secure aware culture is to prioritize the security agenda across the whole organization and really to establish how colleagues can engage. Establishing cross-departmental partnerships and getting all stakeholders behind the mission is key to getting the support needed to deploy an organization-wide security approach. Focus your team and agenda on facilitating colleagues to action security safely rather than telling people what not to do. Keeping regular scheduled communications with all stakeholders will enable any issues to be quickly identified and managed. Really, it's about being safe, secure, and in control. And as CEOs have a continually growing list of priorities for board-level discussion, we've seen that cybersecurity is a topic that's been pretty high up. However, cybersecurity is only one aspect of the much broader topic of enterprise risk management, which leads on to converged digital and physical security. Managing security across any size of organization is hard, even when there isn't a global pandemic going on. The importance of a leadership team knowing that their staff, assets, and locations are safe and secure has never been more important than it is today. Organizations need to operate to mitigate risks without delays to effective decision making, or worse, making the wrong decisions. Proactive preparation is important. Sometimes it's also just as important to have the certainty that there isn't an incident or critical event taking place, so that the organization can keep running and false incidents aren't escalated. This is really where technology can contribute the most, by enabling organizations to make the best informed decisions by having the right information in the hands of the right people at the right time. And at this point, I'll hand over to Daniel.
Thank you very much, Darren. So the first step of what we're really talking about there, of having the right information in the hands of the right people at the right time, is identifying that intersection and having a single view of all of the information that's relevant to you. And that's what we refer to as the common operating picture. And we know that in many cases, security operations have grown over a considerable period of time, introducing new systems to incrementally add value to your organization. And even in cases where the security operations are just being introduced now, the chances are that the number of systems being installed from day one today will be considerably greater than they would have been even just a few years ago. And our research has shown us that in addition to the variety of different types of systems today, 90% of all organizations are also using security systems and devices of the same type, but from multiple different manufacturers. And a large number are even using technology from more than 10 different manufacturers, creating an overwhelming amount of disjointed data to make sense of. And making sense of all of the information from these various systems, as Darren said, it's hard enough when there's nothing else going on. But when a critical event happens, how do you ensure that the right people are able to identify those critical events? Now, contrary to what some people think, simply integrating all the various systems together into one pane of glass doesn't actually provide you with situational awareness. All you end up with is the data from all those different systems somehow shoehorned into a single screen or wrapped into a single application, making it even more complicated for the actual users to understand the real situation than it would have been if they were using different systems. And that's where the real importance of a user interface comes in. A common operating picture must not only consume the data from all of the systems, but it must also be intelligent enough to know how to present only the relevant information and to not overload the user with information that they don't really care about. Of course, just being able to view your assets and the events is not enough today. When an incident occurs, you need the ability to take action and to activate or control your systems in the most efficient way possible. But you also need to be able to perform day-to-day operations of those systems. Otherwise, you end up with a nice looking dashboard that nobody's actually using. And one of the pitfalls that we've seen over the years is exactly that. It's organizations investing in single pane of glass solutions with an impressive user interface, but which fail to deliver the user experience that the day-to-day users require in order to efficiently perform their duties. And what you really need is the ability to apply the same level of control over those devices as you would if you were using the native systems themselves. So whether that be, like Darren mentioned earlier, controlling a camera, opening a door, activating intrusion zones, changing set points on HVACs, whatever the device, the chances are that your daily operations involve interacting with it in some way, and you don't want to go back to switching between applications to do that. That would defeat the whole purpose of the common operating picture. So we just said that your platform must give you the ability to control all of the integrated systems as your operations require from within that single platform. And even if you have multiple manufacturers of the same system, which we see all the time, the platform should provide you with a simple and, more importantly, a consistent set of tools to control those devices. So the user only has to learn one way of doing things regardless of what vendor system it is at the edge. And the controls should be tailored to your different user profiles, so the appropriate controls are presented without cluttering your user interface and without adding unnecessary complexity. Those controls should also be able to make use of the system's situational awareness, so certain controls might be made available or not available based upon your current situation. An example of this I saw quite recently was a client for whom, for privacy reasons, they wanted to manage video playback permissions based upon who was physically inside the control room at the time. So the users could only review recorded video if a supervisor was physically inside the control room. Another example we saw from a client recently was that all users of the system should be prevented from remotely opening certain doors in their building if there was an active intruder in the building, which makes perfect sense. And with the right platform, even relatively complex scenarios like that should be possible today without needing any custom software engineering. And the next step is the automated orchestration and event correlation. So the ability to reduce your response times and avoid siloing off of different databases. And the speed of response not only affects your bottom line, but in the safety and security domain can have obviously very serious consequences. And the idea of waiting for a user to notice something before action is taken is a risk that can be really easily avoided through technology today. With automation, you're not relying on your users to know all of your assets off by heart. For example, needing to go and find the nearest camera to where an incident's happened, or losing precious time, again, switching between different applications and look up tables and lists. And that's assuming that your users are well trained enough that they remember the exact process that your organization's prescribed for that given situation, and that they can remember that process precisely in a moment of potential crisis. And if you expect your users to know what's going on now, which question we hear asked all the time, then you're also relying on your users being aware enough of everything that's happening in every single system and being able to draw associations between different events happening in each of those different systems in their heads. Beyond that, and beyond just automation, without true orchestration, what you'll end up with is all of the data from those different systems being completely fragmented and piling up in silos of their own. So we've established that the ability for your platform to automatically take actions based on conditions that you set in advance is critical. And beyond just automating actions, what's even more powerful is the ability to orchestrate more dynamic workflows. Dynamic workflows means that you can define precisely how the system is going to react if this and this happens, or if this and this, but not that happens. To make sure that the system does exactly what you want the system to do, and that it's right for you, not what some software vendor has decided is what should happen. And with that orchestration capability, you should also expect your platform to reduce the strain and reliance on training from your users. The platform now knows what you have said should happen for any given scenario, so it should tell the users exactly that what they need to do next and next after that until the situation's resolved. Again, it's really important that those standard operating procedures, or SOPs, must be able to change based on the platform's situational awareness, because you almost certainly don't want to handle every type of event in exactly the same way every single time, regardless of what else is going on. That's not what we mean by consistency. In the example of the active intruder in the building that I used earlier, the way in which you would respond to a door being held open from right next to a room where you keep your most valuable assets whilst there's an intruder event happening is highly unlikely to be the same as how you want to react if the door is being held open outside the staff lunchroom at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So you need that orchestration engine to be processing all of the incoming data from all of the different systems really diligently and intelligently, and acting as the conductor of that data. And then you start building up a structured single source of truth for answering the question of what's going on, rather than all of those independent data silos that I talked about earlier. And that is very relevant when it comes to reporting and being able to visualize the data in an appropriate way, whether that be for your day-to-day operations or to present reports and visuals to your operational leaders, and supporting that business case that Darren mentioned earlier is so critical to ensuring the success. And we talked about how having data in silos prevents you from getting that accurate picture of reality inside your organization. But even getting the data from a single system can often be very laborious and a time-consuming process if you're effectively trawling through audit logs of unfiltered data. And if you want to run after-action reporting or investigate a particular incident in detail, again, you might have to set aside several hours and involve multiple people or departments in order to do that, and then to manually transpose all of the data from all of those different silos into something that resembles an accurate report of activities that you can present to your leadership. Now, your platform should by now have been able to structure all of that disparate data using an orchestration engine, which then lets you create those different dashboards to easily visualize what's relevant to you at any given time and in the best format for what you need to see. And by having that data now structured and accessible from one central source, and with your platform being an open system, you should also be able to use whatever business intelligence or data analytics tools that you might already have elsewhere in your organization or that can add value to your analysis to drill into that data from your security systems. And from that, you can gain all sorts of other valuable insights. And now that you have a genuine picture of what's going on or what happened, then things such as analyzing operator performance or your asset utilization, or where you have different incident hotspots and a number of other things, can now be rapidly and, more importantly, accurately understood. And you can now start understanding the trends happening across your organization and start planning for how to improve your processes or close any gaps in your security. And of course, you can continue the theme of automation by creating reporting schedules or rules around what certain triggers are required in order for a report to be run, and what data should be automatically included and who it should be distributed to, and so on, all without needing to take valuable time out of your people and your operations to do those things. And topic that's been very close to our heart for a really long time is the concept of open platform, and making sure that you're investing in a scalable, extensible, independent ecosystem. Now, words like that, scalable, extensible, independent, future-proofing, everyone typically agrees that these are really good things and are very important. But unfortunately, we've also seen these things falling by the wayside sometimes once users get to the sharp end of a tender process or a procurement process. And that's actually the same behavior that we all saw a few decades ago with organizations favoring quick wins over ongoing costs of ownership. So some of us on the call today might remember the old days in IT when vendors would be pushing their proprietary PCs and printers and switches and other components all from a single source at a lower price point based on bulk discounts, but without the ability to play nicely with components from other vendors, right? And that, of course, is in order to keep customers locked into their ecosystem. And buying everything from a single vendor might mean quicker deployment with fewer requirements and real integration on day one. But what about next year when you want to integrate a new system that's taken the market by storm, or another vendor which your organization's identified as being able to deliver critical benefits to you? What about when you suddenly find yourself managing a new location, whether through growth or M&A activity or so many other reasons that we see all the time? Are you really going to rip and replace all of those existing systems in those locations to match the one that you selected earlier? And going back to Darren's point, what's the impact of that cost on your total cost of ownership? And some people might say, well, we're an open system, we'll give you an API, but what does that really mean? That means that you're still locked to whatever functionality that vendor exposes in that API, right? Based on their rules, not yours, without considering whatever capabilities might exist in the other systems that you're actually trying to integrate. And a truly open platform simply doesn't work that way. A truly open platform doesn't only mean that it's being supplied from a neutral vendor, although that certainly helps, but it also means being truly extensible when it comes to integration. So instead of the platform dictating what you can or cannot do or cannot achieve through an integration, let the system to be integrated determine that. That way, you, as a user, can continually make your ongoing product decisions based on what the new system can do and how extensible that system is, not based upon what their relationship is like with your main platform vendor. And the last thing that I'm going to be talking to in terms of the technology component is the idea of innovation and transformation. So today's global security operations demand converged physical and digital capabilities. Within any enterprise security ecosystem, the convergence reality may be more complex than many CEOs realize. Digital capabilities may sit in physical assets such as sensors inside fire systems and alarms and CCTV that send data to a command control center. And equally, physical security considerations must be made for your digital assets, such as network access points or storage of valuable data. And it's illogical to view these digital and physical security systems as mutually exclusive. Therefore, cybersecurity and physical security should be assigned equal transformation importance. Transformation agendas are often hampered by most organizations' instinctive resistance to change, but change is necessary. In an uncertain, globalized world with a growing number of risks, organizations need adaptability. CSOs and CISOs and their teams need to organize and manage resources to achieve security transformation and innovation now. Ineffective silo processes and lack of technology interoperability will hamper the effectiveness of employees. It will inevitably lead to a strategy implementation gap and a failed security transformation or innovation program. And the overriding purpose of a robust security strategy is to drive security, technology, and process transformation and innovation that is fully adopted across the enterprise and makes commercial sense. Every organization evolves over time through M&A activity, organic growth, staff changes, and so on. And those processes vary to meet new business and compliance requirements. But security is a long-term investment. A decision made today will need to support your requirements tomorrow and next year and the year after that, whatever emerging threats arise. Conducting a full organizational audit of security, of your security needs, is useful to ensure that you have a complete list of requirements that will future-proof your technologies and your operations. And ensuring you choose solutions that allow you an easy and cost-effective path to scale up or down to meet your needs will reduce the risk of needing to change expensive systems a few years down the line. And it is time to ensure that safety and security are regular boardroom topics. The discussion should be as insightful and quantifiable as all other commercial discussions where investments and benefits are relevant to boardroom members. Ultimately, safeguarding people, facilities, and assets while ensuring business continuity are everyday CEO concerns. As we'll show you with Control Center, you will avoid technology lock-ins by leveraging our existing library of over 250 integrations that's growing day by day on a truly open integration platform. And this de-risks any business case for safety and security and ensures that future decisions are never hampered. And a good example, really good example of exactly that extensibility and future-proofing that I was just talking about is the strain that everybody's going through today around the world in returning to work. How can you and your colleagues return safely and securely to your facilities? And it's a perfect use case of all the things that we've just talked about. Returning to work has required technology providers to be agile and innovative in creating valuable solutions for different use cases, and we've seen so many of those. And we've been working with our partners around the world to create solutions that are relevant to different clients, different users, depending on their situation, depending on their geography, their people, and ultimately their requirements. And we recognize that there's no single system today that is going to solve all of the challenges of returning to the workplace safely and securely during these challenging times. But we are pleased to be working with our partners and our clients to be reducing the risks as much as possible by leveraging all of the different technologies together to create solutions that are greater than the sum of their parts. And with that, I will hand you back over to Darren, who's going to talk you through specifically why Control Center and how Control Center is designed to address all of the things that we've just talked about today.
Thank you, Daniel. So the technology works by first taking all the disparate inputs from all your various security technologies and integrating them through a fully scalable integration engine. We understand that it's what you do with all the data that really matters. So the system provides a rules-based logic engine that analyzes the data in order to verify what is important enough to take automatic action on. For example, issuing a task to a mobile responder, and what is important enough to visualize to the user. If the event is important enough for the user to be made aware of and potentially take action on it, the system allows you to define how that event should be visualized so that it's presented in the most appropriate way without getting in the way of something else that may potentially be even more important. And if the user does need to take action, that response should be measured, consistent, and fully in line with your standard operating procedures. The benefit of having a dynamic workflow engine is that it lets you create different permutations of the same types of events. Control Center enables you to define different permutations of response depending on the situation, and that really is what we call situational awareness. Of course, every event received, every operator interaction, and every action taken by the system automatically is securely logged in the system's audit database and can be reported on in a way that best serves your organization or the different stakeholders in your organization. That includes real-time dynamic dashboards, automatic reports being emailed based on certain triggers or timeframes, or the ability to go and create your own custom data reports. By doing this, it enables users to have a single common operating picture, which you've heard Daniel talk about. But more importantly, it mustn't be overwhelming or overloading the user with too much information, allowing them to take the best informed, insightful actions for their operations. So with Control Center, you can control your assets better, reduce your risk, you can automate actions. We've talked about avoiding technology lock-ins by leveraging our existing library of drivers. We've also discussed about preventing information overload and ensuring compliance. And finally, improving efficiencies to keep stakeholders informed through automated performance reporting and real-time dashboards that are configured to your organization or user roles requirements. Because really, when it comes down to it, it's about getting the right information to the right people at the right time. And we've been doing this since 2001, have been solely focused on deploying our software in what we would call mission critical safety and security clients. We've worked across a number of different industries, from government and federal agencies through to critical national infrastructure, such as nuclear facilities, palaces, visitor attractions, and so on. We've also worked extensively with rail, metro, and air transport, and various corporate entities. We've worked in situations where the scale is really important. Now, we're not going to give you a demo today, but we're showing you a teaser here of our archetype. Should you require a full product demonstration or an archetype demonstration, then please do contact us and we can organize that. So our three key takeaways from this session is that security has changed. And really, to be safe, secure, and in control, the approach and technologies that are used need to be adaptable. Automation is essential for driving the right kind of business case. And only through using automation will you be able to ensure the safety of people and also to ensure continued business operations, whatever critical event or incident occurs. Certainly from our customers' perspective, we have a number of case studies where they've really prepared for the next crisis through the learnings that they've had during the pandemic. And we'd be more than happy to discuss this either today in the Q&A or by contacting us for more information. Carrie, do we have any questions? So I'm seeing a question here about the big changes during COVID-19. Probably what we've seen with our clients is that there's been an increase in the duty of care that's required, whether it's customer visits, impacts on friends and family, contact tracing, mental health. We've had a whole gamut of kind of interesting situations that customers have faced, whether it's from site-based operations or remote operations, because as people start working from home, obviously cyber security needs have increased. But actually, what's really interesting from a physical security perspective are the insider threats, particularly where you're trying to reduce costs and there may be workforce reduction, but also with working from home where employees are unsupervised. Having remote situational awareness becomes really important. And we've seen that in a number of clients where maybe potentially managing multiple site locations where the physical security guards can't work within that building and have been working from home, managing facilities distributed over a broad geographic region. There's probably quite a lot of other stuff I could talk about, but I think in summary, COVID-19 has created the potential for a very strong business case going forward to articulate the value of physical security.
Thank you, Darren. We have another question that's come in here. You talk about future proofing, but how do you actually do that? There was something on the slide talking about DDK.
I'll take that one, Carrie. Yes, so the DDK that I think was referenced on the slide there is what we call, it's the name that we've given to our what we call the driver development kit. So that's our tool that we use to ensure that instead of us just supplying a simple API for integration to Control Center, we use that driver development kit that's openly available, of course, to wrap around the interface points that we're trying to integrate to. So whether that be a subsystems API or an SDK or whatever it might be, that's the way which we ensure that we're not ever locking anybody down to what can be achieved through an integration. But it's a great question.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Next question is, what's the difference between Everbridge Control Center and CNL IP Security Center?
It's the same thing.
Yeah, that's an easy one. It's the same. It's the new name for CNL IP Security Center is Everbridge Control Center.
Excellent, thank you. Looks like we have time for one more question. How can I get a demonstration of the archetype that was mentioned?
For sure. So we've got the question from you and we can reach out to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Darren. All right, looks like that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you very much for those that were able to attend with us today. As I mentioned, we will have a recording of this session that we will send out via email. We welcome any additional conversations and questions, and we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone.